A larger-than-life performer who wowed audiences with his powerful presence and musical genius. Off stage, Prince's world was shrouded in secrecy, the artist keeping his life private.
There were a lot of walls and a lot of boundaries that were put up to keep a lot of people out, even in his inner circle.
Celebrity Page unlocking those secrets, revealing a side of the musician never seen before.
He and Prince actually got into this knockdown, drag-out fight about what his name would be.
Details of his quiet generosity that's still making an impact.
They just get an anonymous check. Almost nobody could put it together. And we'd laugh sometimes.
What went on behind the walls of his private compound?
It was eclectic. There was an energy about it. You knew you were inside of the great Paisley Park.
The trauma he endured that turned him into the icon we know today, and the bombshells still to come.
I think every twist and turn through this estate that could last years and years is going to be a potential fight.
It's all coming up on Celebrity Page Presents Prince, The Secret Life. Born in Minneapolis to musical parents, Prince Rogers Nelson overcame tough obstacles to become a superstar.
He was an incredibly shy child, terribly so, and he would spend hours playing by himself, isolated from other kids, other people in his life. He was born with epilepsy, so he had to deal with that, and also he was, bullied at school. He suffered, isolation and at home. He was picked on because he was unusual. He was a different kid to the rest of his school.
He ate lunch every day by himself. He was a loner, they say, and that's kind of how he liked it.
Brandy Powell, an anchor and reporter at KSTP in Minneapolis, talked with a man who was able to break through the walls the deeply guarded star had built.
Art Erickson is his name. So at the time, he actually worked part-time at a church and part-time in the community. And this was in South Minneapolis. Part of the work that he did with Prince was going over to his school, going to his lunchroom, and he would actually sit with Prince every week, every other week. Prince was by himself, and he said he tried to talk to him. He tried to get him to open up, and really keeping to himself was something that he really said, and the other people I've talked with really said that Prince kind of wanted to do.
Despite his need to be alone, Prince would join Erickson on a volunteer trip, eventually sharing one of his deepest, darkest secrets.
Prince said that after his parents got divorced, that it was tough. And he said that the man that his mom was with lived with them. And he described how one summer he was locked in his room by that man for about 6 weeks. And he was only able to come out to eat, shower, things like that. And Prince said that that's when he learned to play all of these instruments.
Prince's talent was part of his genetic makeup.
Prince's father was musically adept, that he played instruments, that the reason why Prince was able to learn how to play the piano is because there was a piano in his childhood home.
I think he had the genetic composition to be able to teach himself all of these instruments. I think he was a genius at it, and so he had the genes, but he also had the environment and the knowledge, fortitude, and the desire to do that as well.
That trauma marked a turning point for Prince, a classmate remembering a desperately shy teen who came alive on stage.
He said Prince was so quiet, he didn't talk to anybody, he hardly emoted. And then he thought about some of Prince's first talent shows. And he said in the talent show, he didn't sing, he didn't dance, but he was playing all of these instruments.
That was an outlet for him, and he became a very talented musician during that time.
I think for him, having access to the stage and creating that persona was his go-to. It was his safe place. It was his creative place. It was the place that everybody loved him.
The love on stage, a stark contrast to family life and isolation at home.
He had a half-brother that he'd barely spoken to. His sister He didn't have a great relationship with her.
There have been rumors that perhaps the siblings didn't get along.
That loneliness created a feeding ground for his musical creativity.
He wrote music the way you write emails. He just expressed himself through music. He had so much genius inside of him about human beings. And music was the only way to really express it fully.
And it wasn't long before Prince would introduce his talent to the world.
For that kid at 17, he sends in a tape to the record companies. He's 18, 19 years old. They say, this is the best band we've ever heard. Send the band. He walks in, he says, I'm the band. I wrote it, I composed it, I played every instrument, and I'm gonna produce my own album. Which was at that time was unheard of. It's still rare. At the time, it was unheard of.
When he had the opportunity and the platform to kind of show his gift to the world at 17 years old, he took that opportunity and he kind of turned things around for himself, and he became known as that musical genius listen, have you heard that kid that plays the guitar? So he kind of turned it around, and people started to realize that, wow, this kid is going to be something. And a lot of people from his neighborhood where he grew up and he stayed in really understood, hey, this guy is going to be somewhat of a genius someday.
Prince threw everything he had into a new persona to escape his difficult childhood.
I believe that he had a vision for himself in his life, and he pursued that at all costs. He knew what he wanted to be, he saw it, he felt it, and he went for it full force. And he just created that entire persona, and it took off from there. So I really felt he had that will and desire deep down within, and that dream. He believed in himself, and he made it happen.
One classmate recalling his first memories of this new Prince.
When he first saw him on stage right before he sort of came into stardom, he said Prince had, this tight outfit on and almost this leopard sort of G-string thing. And he said, my goodness, is this Prince the guy that's, 2 photos down from me in the yearbook who was so quiet, who barely talked? He couldn't believe it.
When people talk about Prince being the super sexy person, you have to realize that he did things a lot differently. So when you talk about Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and the people that came out of Minneapolis, his thing was, how do you separate yourself from the pack? So for him, with the heels and the shirts and everything that he encompassed in terms of fashion, allowed him to step out on his own platform.
With that image came a distinct name.
He was figuring out, what am I going to be called? And the man who discovered Prince said, Prince. He told me, he said, Prince, this is perfect. This is your name. We can't come up with a better stage name than this. And he said that he and Prince actually got into this knockdown, drag-out fight for 3 weeks, he said, about what his name would be. And he said if Prince had had his way, that we all now would be mourning the loss and celebrating the life of not Prince, but Mr. Nelson.
But this artist with a great mystique was hiding another secret. He was surprisingly normal.
He was also an incredibly talented athlete. He played basketball at a very great level.
He was short, but he was still really good. He was actually very fast. And people said that in a way, he almost resented the fact that people didn't recognize the talent, that because he was so short, they sort of, didn't have him starting on games, or people didn't necessarily take him seriously. But even as a child, as he was playing basketball, he was better than some of the people who were, a foot taller than him, like his brother.
And amazingly, he was very talented at ping pong, which most people don't know about.
Yeah, it was unfair, Prince, on the ping pong stuff, because you think, look, I was a kid, I played ping pong. You think, oh, this is like some way we can actually bond or, have some sort of, no. He'd stand there and barely move. And he's a short guy, his arms aren't that long. And he would barely move. And you'd be jumping all around the room, falling down, sweating, and he'd be talking trash the whole time. Did you see that, man? That was a ball. Fantastic.
And yet there was always something looming in his past.
Art said years later here in Minneapolis, he went to a musical event. He said he saw, the big afro. He said, there's Prince, I'm going to go talk to him. And he said, Prince, remember that story you told me from back when you were a kid? The man that your mom was with had locked you in that room for 6.5 weeks. You learned how to play your instruments then. Are you going to stick to that story? Prince looked at him and said, that really happened. That really happened.
But all of the dark secrets fueled his ambition.
We often see children who come from unstable homes can channel themselves and be driven, really driven, to either take the high road or take the low road. And we saw that as he grew into an adolescent, teaching himself all of these instruments, he really became a musical genius. And that's the persona and life and energy that he created for himself growing up.
I think despite some of those troubled times, Prince really exemplifies through tribulations, you can triumph. And that's what he was able to show through his music.
That music also making him an unlikely sex symbol.
Even though you see Prince and he's this guy, 5'2", skinny, small, he's got his tight pants on, he's got his stilettos on, this crazy wild hair, he was still able to date and marry some of the most beautiful women in the world.
Coming up on Celebrity Page Presents Prince, The Secret Life.
He was very open about his sexual experiences, and he bedded hundreds and hundreds of partners over the years.
Prince's relationships and the traumatic event that may have haunted the pop star until his death.
It seems like those true demons and abuse from his childhood got the best of him later on in life, that he just couldn't adequately cope with those traumas.
Baby G.
This is next level.
I'm here to win it. You're here to win it.
Create a next level dish.
We're going to smoke those 2 floors above us.
Next Level Chef, Thursdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
Save big during the 3-day sale at Hy-Vee this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Bone-in pork shoulder roast, just $1.88 a pound. DiGiorno, Tombstone, or Jack's Pizza, just $2.99. Dole salad kits, just $2.99. Campbell's soup, just 88 cents. Plus, save on Hy-Vee peanut butter, pork top loin chops, Simply Done bath tissue, Hy-Vee ice cream, and more. Save in-store and online this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and only at Hy-Vee.
Giving back has always been part of our culture. This month, during the Subaru Loves to Help initiative, join us in partnering with Families Forward to provide coats, shoes, and socks to those in urgent need and experiencing homelessness. Ramsey Subaru, more than a car dealer.
Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we found out she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
At first, we thought the problem was our puppy.
Look, what's in the clue?
Or something outside.
But the culprit was our old detergent.
Aha!
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. It cleans better and doesn't leave behind irritating residues.
And it has no dyes or perfume, so it's gentle on her skin.
Case closed.
Tide Free and Gentle Liquid is EPA Safer Choice certified.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide.
The only thing on the road faster than a race car are rising car repair costs. But with Endurance, you'll never pay for covered car repairs again.
Just 2 claims saved us over $1,700.
If I didn't have Endurance, I would have paid over $7,000 out of pocket to repair my vehicle.
So make the call. Find out how much you could save with Endurance.
Call right now to get $300 off any plan.
Call 1-833-440-3916 now.
Prince overcame the odds, transitioning from a painfully shy child to an overtly sexual and flamboyant performer. While the two personalities were much different, one thing was constant.
He was a ladies' man. He was very popular with the ladies, and throughout his life, not just teenage Prince, but Prince in his 20s and 30s, and when he became a superstar right through up until the latter years of his life. Incredibly so for someone who was that shy. He was attracted to many women, and many women were attracted to him.
And these weren't just any ladies.
The world's most beautiful women, from Madonna to Kim Basinger to Sheila E. I mean, he was just surrounded by pretty women, and they were attracted to him through his music. I mean, his music was sexy. He was sexy. He was an individual, and for that time, it was someone different, and they were drawn to him.
Even though you see Prince and he's this guy, 5'2", skinny, small, he's got his tight pants on, he's got his stilettos on, this crazy wild hair, he was still able to date and marry some of the most beautiful women in the world.
I think the confidence came from the music. He was incredibly talented, playing 20-something musical instruments, and he really kind of shone as this musician, and that's where his confidence came from.
It wasn't just the music. Prince also had another secret weapon when it came to the ladies.
That rhythm and timing that made him such a great musician is the same rhythm and timing that made him an amazing comic. I mean, it's a similar thing, romance has a rhythm and timing, music. Well, he had all of that.
Despite his success with women, there were many who questioned Prince's sexuality.
Look, it's always been rumored that Prince had gay liaisons, and certainly he was living at quite a loose sexually time. There were parties where, sex parties where men and women were involved, but certainly, we don't think that Prince was gay. Just he was, very open about his, sexual experiences, and he bedded, hundreds and hundreds of partners over the years, and we think a few of those were men.
Prince was somebody who sort of broke those barriers in terms of that. He really made it so that other artists and other people really felt like, okay, I can break free and be myself. I think one of the reasons why Prince was somebody that people really felt that connection to here, not only because he was from here, but because he really was himself in terms of being that sort of interesting sexual being that wasn't maybe fitting in the mold that other rock stars, pop stars had in the past.
But was that outward confidence hiding something darker within?
I think oftentimes those deep-rooted insecurities, we try and keep them at bay and keep them where they are. And we give off this persona of being very confident and a very sexual being, and embody that persona of a rock star that he did so incredibly well. But deep down inside, there is those insecurities, and we know he lived a very private and a very quiet life in his personal life.
Prince would tie the knot twice in his life.
Prince married one of his backup dancers.
Maite Garcia was 22, Prince was 37.
He had a child with Maite, an incredibly sad story.
Their child, boy Gregory, died from a rare condition days after birth.
Prince was left heartbroken by that. He'd always wanted to be a dad.
He was a father for just that very short period of time. He had wanted that as part of his life, that he had wanted to love and care for a person in that way.
And that death took a toll.
That is something that is unspeakable for parents to try and get over, the loss of a child. And for someone who was so private and so sensitive and so shy and who wanted a family so deeply, I believe that really haunted him for much of his life.
Prince channeled that pain and fed his need to nurture by helping others.
He would scour the internet trying to find musicians. I mean, he would look at YouTube clips of, 4-year-old kids playing the flute. I want that kid to come to Paisley and bring the parents. I want those parents to understand what it's like to have a musical prodigy in your house.
Part of that need to nurture also coming from his broken childhood and difficult relationship with his siblings.
Prince was cut off from his family for the most part. I mean, he had a number of siblings, but he wasn't close to any of them.
But the family is now telling a different story.
Tyga and the others have come forward in recent weeks and said, this is false. We all got along really well.
She's coming forward now and saying that because they're going through a process to divide up his estate in light of the fact that there wasn't a will filed. But you have to remember that Prince wasn't close to his siblings.
Whatever their relationship, in the eyes of the law, they stand to win big.
There have been reports that he was estranged from some of these individuals, but yet because he did not have a will and he does not appear to have a trust, these would be the people that would inherit his estate.
And that's just the beginning of the secrets that could be revealed.
There could be a secret marriage we don't know about that could still be out there. We could see intimate details of his home and his personal effects in the home, because everything in the probate court's a public record.
The scene is extraordinarily important as far as coming to a conclusion. You're going to be able to find evidence that there was maybe the abuse of the medication versus someone taking a medication as prescribed.
Clues that will expose more of the life Prince tried so hard to keep from the world.
It's in the pharmacies, it's on the streets, it's very, very easy to get. So for a superstar like Prince, it would be very easy for him to get this medication.
Coming up on Celebrity Page Presents Prince, The Secret Life.
He was performing right up until, the week of his death. So he was using these drugs to help with the pain and help with him getting through, day-to-day life and performing.
More on the private life Prince kept hidden from everyone, including his innermost circle. Celebrity Page presents Prince, The Secret Life. To say Prince was a perfectionist is an understatement. Those who worked with him describe his desire to be the best as much more than type A.
One of the stories was that they would be working all day and all night for a few weeks, and at the end of that, when they sort of had their final product, that Prince would say, not into it, let's scrub that, we're not going to use it. And everyone would say, what? Which really goes to show that he had that perfectionist way about him, and that he really was that kind of artist and that visionary that would do something from the heart or the soul or the gut, and that if it didn't feel right, even though they had put all of that time and effort into it, it didn't feel right. And he was confident enough to let people know, we're not going with it.
And if one person in the band was off a little bit, he shut the whole thing down. Because it wasn't that he was so tough on the band. He believed in the band. It's different. If you're just tough, you're mean. If you believe that something can be great, which is what he did, you're not going to accept 92%. Maybe 92% worked in the last band. This is Prince's band. It's different.
And those who knew him came to understand how he would show his praise.
He would push him and push him and push him. And, he had this way of not giving anybody positive feedback musically. It was a lack of negative feedback, right? So when things were so perfect at a rehearsal, the music was unbelievable. I mean, better than any concert. And he would say, I guess we should eat now. And just walk off. And that was your applause. That was it. And people would be so happy that, he said, we're good enough to have some food.
Many of those practice sessions taking place inside the secluded and ultra-secretive Paisley Park.
When you would go to Paisley Park, his complex, I used to say, you should have to get a passport to come in here. It's a completely different land. Even time operated differently. Most people, you hang around them for 2 hours, 3 hours. By hour number 4, everybody's looking at their watch. With Prince, you look up, it's been 12 hours, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and nobody's noticed. Another room in Paisley where you go in there and everybody can perform. There's a big place where you can put 2,000 people, perfect sound system, and you had to perform. So he give you a cowbell, and then if you can't do that, then he demotes you to the tambourine. But everybody's got to perform. I had the tambourine a lot. Sometimes they're just jamming, they're just playing around, and then all of a sudden you hear a little riff. It's like, oh, the beautiful. Like just sort of like put in there just to, as an homage to the past. He didn't believe in time, by the way. He just thought that time was something for suckers. He just, if you ask Prince, he would do this trick with people. And he'd say to you, well, how many birthdays have you had? And you go, oh, yeah, 34. He'd go, I only had one, right? Because he's like, let's just be present right now. Let's not worry about age. Let's not worry about race. Let's not worry about any of these things. Let's just be present right now and make music and come up with cool stuff to do.
A different sense of time and strict rules.
No cell phones, no photos. So this experience that you are going to have is going to be one of a kind. It's going to be for your memory. It's not going to go on social media. It was eclectic. There was an energy about it. You knew you were inside of the great Paisley Park.
He didn't curse. You couldn't curse around him. And I learned it the hard way. I was at Paisley Park and I was joking. I threw off some little F-bomb or whatever. And he said, stop. You can't speak that way here. The paint will peel off the wall. You're just like, and you're at Paisley Park, you're like, maybe that's true. Like, I don't know why, this place feels so amazing, but no meat, vegan, no smoking, no drinking, no drugs, no cursing, but because of that, the level of excellence he was able to achieve musically, it was unreal.
That level of excellence creating an international allure that would last for decades.
He was the last person who everybody could come to the party. If you were a nerd, you could come. If you were a cool kid, you could come. If you were gay, you could come. If you were straight, you could come. If you were black, purple, no matter what color you were, who you were, you could fit in at the Prince party.
He was loved by so many people that he kind of, the span of time, I would say generations of people fell in love with Prince and his music, because he didn't just play to black, white, he played to black, white, polka dot, Hispanic, other, and everyone who just loved music and loved soul music fell in love with Prince.
But Prince may have paid the ultimate price trying to live up to the image he had created.
Prince was abusing prescription drugs, there's no doubt. He was in a great deal of pain towards the end of his life. He was reliant on those to get through these shows. You got to remember, he was performing right up until, the week of his death. So he was using these drugs to help with the pain and help with him getting through, day-to-day life and performing.
He was bouncing up from doing splits on the ground to some jump in the air. You can understand how he ended up having all of that hip pain, having to have the hip surgery, and the subsequent aftermath that he had to deal with. The performer in him, which is what I know so many of us loved so much, ended up creating the pain that he lived with in those final years.
When someone has surgery, we know that they're going to be prescribed opioids to alleviate the pain. It seems that he was continuing to experience pain in his concerts. He was very active on stage, and so in order to be able to do the splits and running around on stage, if he was able to alleviate the pain through taking the opioids, he could put on a great show.
The nature of the drug making it easy to hide.
Oftentimes, we don't even know that people are taking them because they can function and perform their activities every day. So many of us don't even know that people are using this medication or abusing the medication as well.
And that's why many were shocked to learn about Prince's use of the highly addictive opioid Percocet.
Prince was like anyone else in this country who has suffered from opiate addiction. They go in for a regular procedure, they're prescribed painkillers, they start using them, they become addicted to them. They're highly addictive.
It's in the pharmacies, it's on the streets, it's very, very easy to get. So for a superstar like Prince, it would be very easy for him to get this medication.
Just one more secret this intensely private star was holding deep inside.
He himself was riding his bicycle to the pharmacy to pick up his medication rather than having an assistant do it. So this could have been a very close secret between him and his physician or physicians, that no one was wiser to.
The trauma from his childhood making it even harder to share his struggle.
When you're abused as a child or you're very shy and come from an unstable home, it is even more challenging and more difficult to just expose yourself and to be open and to share and to talk about the things that are perceived as negative, such as drug addiction.
But there are clues someone was seeking help.
It seems that there was some kind of intervention that was starting by the people in his inner circle to get the help that he needed.
But it would be too late. The physical and emotional pain of his life eventually took its toll on April 21st, 2016.
We are tracking breaking news right now. If you're just joining us, we have just learned a death investigation is going on right now at Prince's studio, Paisley Park. We want to go back right now to our Tom Hauser, who is at Paisley Park, where Prince
always quietly mentoring and giving back.
I was doing work in Oakland getting low-income kids trained to put up solar panels, and he tried to send me an anonymous donation, which I learned later on does all the time, but I don't accept anonymous donations, so I would send a check back, and he would send it back, and I would send it, so we ping-ponged this $50,000 check for a little bit. Finally, his representative called me and said, listen, please take the check. The guy who's sending it to you, his favorite color is purple. I said, well, now you got another problem. He said, what's that? I said, now I'm not going to cash the check, I'm going to frame it. And Prince thought that was so funny that he called me. And we wound up becoming very, very good friends.
And it didn't stop there. He secretly left the world a better place everywhere he went.
Prince had this ethic. If he went to a community and he did a show or did a couple of shows, he's got this big pile of cash. He never wanted to leave town with that whole pile of cash. He felt like he had a responsibility to leave some behind in the communities and with the groups that needed it. But he didn't want anybody to know that. And so, the people who work with him, you'd be in some city and you'd be trying to figure out who were the groups that were touching some issue or some constituency, and they just get an anonymous check. It was amazing. Almost nobody would put it together. And we'd laugh sometimes that nobody could figure out where the money was coming from. But there were programs, sports programs, music programs all across the country that benefited from his charity, but he never wanted anybody to know.
And when he did outwardly donate, there was still something hiding beneath the surface.
We know that Prince was an incredibly generous man, although he didn't seek publicity or notoriety like some other celebrities do. He donated his time to a lot of foundations, including performing for free when usually it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars that he'd charge for these performances. So he was incredibly generous with his time and with his money.
The passion to uplift people that we saw on stage and in the studio doesn't end until he walks off stage. He still want to uplift people. He's still trying to figure out what's going on. How do I find something the kids can dance to in the world of politics? So having poor kids putting up solar panels, everybody can dance to that. Having low-income kids going to Silicon Valley and getting great jobs, everybody can dance to that. The charities, the Harlem Children's Zone, everybody can dance to the stuff that he would clue in on from his charitable point of view. Everybody could dance to what he would zero in on from a charitable point of view, just like when he...
But the global superstar never forgot where he came from.
Prince had a foundation, I've learned, where he gave back. Here in Minnesota, though, what is now called Urban Ventures, which is in South Minneapolis, an area where Prince grew up, he now is making it so that other young kids, just like him, who maybe had a more challenging childhood, can really foster their musical abilities. Kids just like him are able to come in, learn how to play different instruments.
Prince not only inspired, but he challenged others to do the same.
And he was a news nerd. Okay, he was constantly looking at the news, going online. He'd ask you the toughest questions about why did the president do this? Why is this happening in that country? And he wouldn't accept a simple answer. He loved learning. This guy was a teacher's dream. He just sucked knowledge. Right. So he's so quiet. He was learning. He was listening. And he was watching. He was very savvy. I've taught at Princeton. The students at Princeton did not ask questions as tough as Prince, period. I went to Yale. I'm a fellow at MIT. The toughest questions I've ever gotten from anybody on philosophy, theology, Prince Roger Mills.
His intellect, background, and creativity allowed him to craft solutions to the greatest social issues of our time.
He knew what it was like to grow up, being the wrong color in a town where everybody looks different from you. And he studied Black history, and he loved Black causes. And Black Lives Matter just thrilled him. And yet, he felt that its true genius would come when it became an economic movement. He said, why don't those young people go and start businesses? Why don't they use their creativity to create jobs? He says, then a lot of these problems would just go away. And so he supported Black Lives Matter, but he also had a higher vision for them, that someday all those young people would be out there not protesting about injustice, but creating the communities that they actually want to live in.
And Prince may have been trying to build the world he wanted to live in.
We see that when someone really wants to get to the root of these issues and fix them and get rid of them, it's often linked to some kind of trauma and things that they experienced in their life. And I think someone like him who was so giving and altruistic, that's what made him feel better, knowing that he was truly making a difference and not just throwing money at causes.
The giving will likely continue in his death, and where that money goes could expose even more secrets and family drama.
We know from sources that he did start to draft a will that was never filed. It's quite unclear how far he got with that will, but that's something none of the family would want to come out, because it's likely a lot of that money would be donated to all these causes that we know about.
As long as a will is handwritten and signed and dated at the bottom, it's a valid will under Minnesota law. If that does happen and a document like that surfaces, that is a game changer. That means all of the heirs or people that thought they were heirs under Minnesota intestate law, they may not get anything, because then the will dictate who receives what.
And the stakes are high in an estate worth hundreds of millions of dollars and growing every day.
He was a devout Jehovah's Witness, so a great deal of his estate he'd probably want to go back into that religion, as well as different AIDS charities, as well as other charities and organizations that he supported over the years.
What if he hand wrote out a document that meets the formalities of a will and left everything to the Jehovah's Witness organization? Well, then they would receive everything. All of these claimed children and all of these siblings and half-siblings in that case would get left out in the cold.
And the charities aren't the only threat to Prince's fortune.
I think we're going to see some new chaos and new bombshells. There have already been reports of family infighting. I think every twist and turn through this estate that could last years and years is going to be a potential fight.
Coming up on Celebrity Page Presents Prince, The Secret Life.
There is no telling how many different deep, dark, buried family secrets could come to light through this process.
More Prince estate shockers that could change everything.
The struggle in the wild intensifies, while the game shifts to one of strategy.
We have your back, you have ours.
The alliance is made. Everyone's looking at us like we're the bad guys.
I'm so sorry.
Extracted, all new Monday on Fox.
What keeps baby's skin healthy? A diaper that doesn't leave skin wet. That's why Pampers Swaddlers absorbs wetness better, for up to 100% leak-proof protection and 0% skin irritation. Pampers, for healthy baby skin.
This is the moment you train for. This is the moment you start to believe in yourself. This is the moment Mathnasium pays off. Mathnasium isn't about extra homework. Our method is based on number sense and real understanding, so you have the tools to figure out every problem in any subject, and the confidence to tackle them. Mathnasium. Find a center near you at mathnasium.com.
Well, you're in the big leagues now.
How was your vacation, sir?
Oh, I needed one.
With your 10% loyalty program discount, that's $225 for the night.
Not bad.
$155 for the night.
Hold up. How?
It's easy when you know where to look.
Trivago compares hotel prices from hundreds of sites, so you can save up to 40%.
Trivago is my secret tactic.
Hotel Trivago.
Stitch Fix is so convenient. Anyone can have a stylist.
The ease of use and the time you save, not having to go from store to store.
You go through the style quiz. What is your fit? What's your style?
It's upon you to decide how much you're spending.
The interactions you have with a stylist is phenomenal.
I work, I'm a dad, I'm on a budget.
Got my first package. The fit was fitting. There's no subscription. If I look good, I feel good. And Stitch Fix does that for me.
Stitch Fix, online personal styling for everyone.
Vehicle breakdowns are costly.
It started making some really weird noises.
If your check engine light comes on tomorrow, the repair could easily cost thousands.
Here's that transmission.
But with Endurance, you could never pay out of pocket for a costly repair again.
They covered a $14,000 engine replacement.
$1,400. Endurance paid it. Who's going to pay for your next car repair? You or Endurance?
Call right now to get $300 off any plan. Call now.
Celebrity Page presents Prince, The Secret Life. A larger-than-life music legend with hundreds of millions of dollars up for grabs.
There is no telling how many different deep, dark, buried family secrets could come to light through this process.
Those secrets already starting to emerge.
There have been over 700 reported claims so far of individuals who claim that they are a biological relation to Prince and that they're entitled to a piece of his estate.
I think a real bombshell would be if a biological child was to come forward, an actual genuine child. I mean, you've got to remember after all those years of Prince, sleeping with all these different women, it's highly probable that there may be someone who is legitimately his heir.
If a biological child or children come forward in Prince's estate, even if Prince never knew this child was born and never met this child one day in his entire life, that child or children would be entitled to inherit his entire fortune.
But claiming that fortune will not be easy.
If somebody comes forward and believes that they are a child of Prince, they would first have to file a petition with the probate court in Minnesota and ask for permission to have their DNA tested against the sample that's already been set aside from Prince.
They actually had to take a vial of blood before Prince was cremated, so they would have that DNA evidence there to see what relatives are really out there, whether they be children, other half-siblings, you name it.
That DNA sample, routine in any death investigation.
We'll maintain a standard of that individual's DNA, basically a blood spot. So if there are questions about paternity or questions about maybe other DNA types of abnormalities, you can always go to these standards and have them tested.
The results of those tests are crucial when it comes to his estate.
Because Prince died with no known children, no spouse, and no parents, if a child were to come forward and prove through DNA testing that that person is indeed Prince's child, that person or people would inherit everything under Minnesota intestate law. That means that his sister and his half-siblings would get nothing if a child is proven to actually be a child.
And this family knows how much is at stake.
The family's priority right now is maintaining Prince's legacy, which is all about the music.
I think that we've seen some bombshells, and absolutely every corner that is turned, I think we're going to see some new chaos and new bombshells. There have already been reports of family infighting, and I think every twist and turn through this estate that could last years and years is going to be a potential fight.
The fight over more than just the fortune he left behind.
I think we're going to be surprised with the amount of music that Prince left behind, because he would say, I write a song every day. He could write tons of songs in one day. For him not to release it, he was very passionate about, I want to put out music with other music that will be timeless, but it has to be the right time, so we're going to hold on to it. So we can't even imagine how much music is left that will be ready for the right time, and when that right time is, we're not certain. To hear some new music from Prince, and we only got a taste of it in 2014 and 2015, and we do know that the last two albums were on the Tidal streaming service. So if they're in charge of the music, we know that we'll hear it. It's just a matter of time, but the impact of what he left behind is going to be so significant.
Once all the vault of Prince music and other material is released, any new royalties, any new profits that come in from that will flow back into the estate. The same heirs that have a claim to Prince's estate and whatever money there is now, they would also have the same rights to whatever future monies come in from royalties, music sales, new business deals.
The royalties coming from more than just his music and leaving more at stake for the intensely private star.
Because he only had started writing the memoirs in the weeks leading up to his death, we only know he finished just a chapter. So just really a small slither of his life.
If there are memoirs or songs that are buried in that vault, there can be deep, dark secrets about Prince's life that have not yet come to light.
I believe there were a lot of secrets that surrounded his life that he did not share with many people. So there were a lot of walls and a lot of boundaries that were put up to keep a lot of people out, even in his inner circle. So I don't think many people knew the true ins and outs of what was happening in his day-to-day life.
But no matter what secrets are revealed, Prince Rogers Nelson will remain an enigma.
When he wasn't doing the music, he was doing jokes. When he wasn't doing jokes, he was beating up people in ping pong. When he wasn't beating people up in ping pong, he was trying to figure out how to save the world.
And the hometown hero, Minneapolis, was proud to call their own.
He loved Minnesota, and he felt like he could be himself here, that he could walk down the streets, that he wasn't afraid to engage with people who knew him. I mean, the superstar just right there on, Main Street saying hello to the people who loved him.
And one of the greatest music superstars of all time.
You could put all the celebrities in the world on the stage right now, but be the same. I mean, you could literally take every artist living in the world and say you jam your hardest together and right now do it all. It wouldn't touch him. It wouldn't touch a Prince show. Like every genius calls him a genius. What do you call that?
'20th and 21st century art.
One of the things that Prince will always be remembered for is the way that he could change genre of music absolutely fluently, whether it was pop or rock or funk or R&B. And he didn't just do it album to album. He would change completely the style.
A larger-than-life performer who wowed audiences with his powerful presence and musical genius.
Do you still don't feel like you ain't sleep?
No. Off stage, Prince's world was shrouded in...
Prince died with no known children, no spouse, and no parents. If a child were to come forward and prove through DNA testing that that person is indeed Prince's child, that person or people would inherit everything under Minnesota intestate law. That means that his sister and his half-siblings would get nothing if a child is proven to actually be a child.
And this family knows how much is at stake.
The family's priority right now is maintaining Prince's legacy, which is all about the music.
I think that we've seen some bombshells, and absolutely every corner that is turned, I think we're going to see some new chaos and new bombshells. There have already been reports of family infighting, and I think every twist and turn through this estate that could last years and years is going to be a potential fight.
The fight over more than just the fortune he left behind.
I think we're going to be surprised with the amount of music that Prince left behind, because he would say, I write a song every day. He could write tons of songs in one day. And for him not to release it, he was very passionate about, I want to put out music with other music that will be timeless, but it has to be the right time. So we're going to hold on to it. So we can't even imagine how much music is left, that will be ready for the right time. And when that right time is, we're not certain. To hear some new music from Prince, and we only got a taste of it in 2014 and 2015, and we do know that the last two albums were on the Tidal streaming service. So if they're in charge of the music, we know that we'll hear it. It's just a matter of time. But the impact of what he left behind is going to be so significant.
Once all the vault of Prince music and other material is released, any new royalties, any new profits that come in from that will flow back into the estate. The same heirs that have a claim to Prince's estate and whatever money there is now, they would also have the same rights to whatever future monies come in from royalties, music sales, new business deals.
The royalties coming from more than just his music and leaving more at stake for the intensely private star.
Because he only had started writing the memoirs in the weeks leading up to his death, we only know he finished just a chapter. So just really a small slither of his life.
If there are memoirs or songs that are buried in that vault, there can be deep, dark secrets about Prince's life that have not yet come to light.
I believe there were a lot of secrets that surrounded his life that he did not share with many people. So there were a lot of walls and a lot of boundaries that were put up to keep a lot of people out, even in his inner circle. So I don't think many people knew the true ins and outs of what was happening in his day-to-day life.
But no matter what secrets are revealed, Prince Rogers Nelson will remain an enigma.
When he wasn't doing the music, he was doing jokes. When he wasn't doing jokes, he was beating up people in ping pong. When he wasn't beating people up in ping pong, he was trying to figure out how to save the world.
And the hometown hero, Minneapolis, was proud to call their own.
He loved Minnesota, and he felt like he could be himself here, that he could walk down the streets, that he wasn't afraid to engage with people who knew him. I mean, the superstar just right there on, Main Street saying hello to the people who loved him.
And one of the greatest music superstars of all time.
You could put all the celebrities in the world on the stage right now with music. I mean, you could literally take every artist living in the world and say you jam your hardest together and right now do it all. It wouldn't touch it. It wouldn't touch a Prince show. Like every genius calls him a genius. What do you call that?